Beholder's Tale, Book of the Dark, Tale of the Pure. The bards and chroniclers of the age are fond of tragedy. They sing of fallen princes betrayed by brothers, of mages whose love was stolen by plague, of queens driven to madness by the ghosts of their slaughtered children. They weave intricate tapestries of pain to explain the shadows that fall upon the world, for it is a comforting notion that evil is merely a warped reflection of good, a thing born of suffering. It allows for the hope that, with enough kindness, enough understanding, the monster can be soothed, the man within can be saved. This is not one of those stories. This is the story of Lord Malachor, and to understand him is to understand that some shadows are not cast by the light, but are voids in existence itself. For over a century the name Malachor was a word spoken only in hushed, fearful whispers. It was the name of the creeping blight that turned the fertile plains of Eridor into cracked, grey dust. It was the name of the silence that fell over the vibrant whisperwood, where the trees now stood as petrified, leafless claws reaching for a sun they no longer felt. His domain, the obsidian spire, was not a castle in the traditional sense. It was a violation of architecture, a single seamless shard of black stone that drank the light from the sky and seemed to hum with a profound and terrifying emptiness. There were no legions of snarling orcs or chittering goblins pouring from its gates. Malachor's conquest was a quiet one. His influence spread like a stain, draining color, sound, and life. Rivers ceased to flow, becoming stagnant, glassy mirrors reflecting a perpetually overcast sky. Birds fell silent mid-song, their calls choked into nothingness. Joy in his presence was an impossibility. Laughter would die in the throat, and hope would wither like a flower in frost. The kingdoms of men, elves, and dwarves, for all their ancient squabbles, united against this creeping entropy. They sent their greatest champions, their wisest mages, their most valiant soldiers. None returned. They were not found slain on the battlefield, their bodies left as a warning. They simply ceased to be. Their names faded from memory, their entries in the history books smudged and illegible, as if the world itself were trying to forget they had ever existed. Finally, when the blight threatened the heart of the last great human city, Eldoria, a hero rose. His name was Sir Calin of the Sunstone Guard, a man who seemed forged from everything Malachor sought to destroy. His laughter was loud and frequent, his hair was the color of summer wheat, and his armor, inlaid with golden filigree, seemed to shine with its own inner light. He was brave, compassionate, and held an unshakable belief in the inherent goodness of the world. He was the perfect hero for a story that demanded one. Calin studied the legends. He spoke to the oldest elves who remembered a time before the blight. He delved into forbidden archives, seeking the origin of the Shadow Lord. Every tale, every myth he consumed reinforced his belief. No one is born a monster, he declared before the Council of Kings and Queens. Malachor must have suffered a loss so profound it shattered his soul. A stolen love, a murdered family, a kingdom turned to ash by a cruel twist of fate. I will not meet his hatred with more hatred. I will find the source of his pain. I will offer him redemption. It was a beautiful sentiment, one that brought tears to the eyes of the queen and swelled the hearts of the soldiers who would follow him. Armed with the sun-forged blade, Ethel, which was said to be unable to harm a pure heart, and shielded by his own radiant faith, Sir Calin led a small company of the bravest knights into the blighted lands. The journey was a trial of the soul. The silence was a physical weight pressing in on them, muffling the clink of their mail and the thud of their boots. The air was cold and thin, devoid of the scent of earth or rain. They passed through a petrified forest where a deer, frozen mid-leap, crumbled to fine gray powder at a knight's touch. They crossed a riverbed of dust that swirled in their wake like ghostly ashes. Many of Calin's men lost their nerve, their spirits draining away until they were hollow-eyed shells, unable to even remember why they had come. Calin, however, only strengthened his resolve. The sheer scale of this despair, he thought, could only be born of an equally monumental agony. At last he stood alone before the obsidian spire. His men had all faded, not in battle but in spirit, turning back with blank faces and forgotten purpose. Calin, clutching the hilt of Ethel, stepped through the archway. The interior was even more unnerving than the exterior. There were no torches, yet he could see. The light was a flat, gray luminescence that came from nowhere and cast no shadows. The halls were geometrically perfect, devoid of any art, any furniture, any sign of habitation. It was the architecture of absolute order, the stark beauty of nothingness. He found Lord Malachor in the central chamber, a vast, circular room with a ceiling that opened to the bruised, starless sky. The Shadow Lord was not seated on a throne of skulls or surrounded by tormented souls. He was simply standing in the center of the room, a tall figure clad in armor the color of a starless midnight. The plates were smooth, unadorned, absorbing the gray light completely. His helmet was a featureless cowl of shadow, save for 2 points of light within that were not flames, but voids, twin eclipses that promised utter annihilation. So, the last flicker of defiance arrives. Malachor's voice was not a boom or a hiss. It was the sound of stone grinding against stone, of a tomb lid sealing for eternity. It held no anger, no malice, only a profound finality. Kalen raised his blade, its gentle light pushing back the oppressive gloom. I have come not to fight you, Lord Malachor, but to understand you. A stillness. Then the helmet tilted. The sound that followed might have been a chuckle, but it had no mirth. It was the dry rustle of autumn leaves skittering across a grave. Understand? You believe me to be a puzzle to be solved. A wound to be healed. Every winter gives way to spring, Kalen said, his voice ringing with conviction. Every sorrow can be mended. Tell me what was done to you. Who hurt you so terribly that you would visit this sterile misery upon the world? Let me help you. For the first time, Lord Malachor moved. He took a single, slow step forward. You speak of tragedy as if it is a prerequisite for power. A justification. You look at this perfection, this silence, this stillness, and you call it misery. You see a flaw that needs correcting. I see a canvas that has been cleansed of a vulgar, chaotic mess. Life is not a mess. Kalen retorted, taking a ready stance. It is beautiful. Its chaos, its noise, its pain and its joy, that is its meaning. An opinion, Malachor stated, his voice flat. One I find aesthetically displeasing. You wish to know my tragic origin, hero? You crave the tale of the boy who lost everything? He raised a gauntlet hand, and the shadows in the room coalesced before him, forming an image. It was of a sun-drenched courtyard. A handsome young man with golden hair and a bright smile laughed as he effortlessly practiced sword forms. Nobles applauded him. A beautiful girl with flowers in her hair watched him with adoration. He was lauded, celebrated, gifted in both spellcraft and swordplay. He wanted for nothing. He had known no hardship, no cruelty, no loss. Kalen stared, confused. Who is this? This, the Shadow Lord said, was me. The image dissolved. I had everything you champion, hero. Love, laughter, light. And I found it all so loud, so terribly pointless. A frantic, pointless dance of breeding and dying, all set to a cacophony of meaningless emotion. I studied the great arts, not to build, but to find the seams of existence. And I found the purest magic of all. The magic of non-existence. The great stillness. Malachor took another step. There was no betrayal. No murdered bride. No kingdom burned. There was only a choice. I looked upon the vibrant, flawed tapestry of life, and I saw a single, elegant solution. I chose to unpick the thread. Kalen's face was a mask of disbelief. All his assumptions, the very foundation of his quest, had crumbled to dust. You chose this? For no reason? Not for no reason, Malachor corrected him, his tone that of a scholar lecturing a child. For the best reason. For the sake of perfection. The universe began in a silent, perfect void. It was tainted by the accident of creation. I am not a destroyer, Sir Kalen. I am a restorer. A curator of peace. The hero's shining faith flickered. He had come to save a man, but there was no man here to save. There was only a philosophy, cold and absolute. He lunged, swinging the sun-forged blade in a brilliant arc. Your peace is death. The blade met Malachor's outstretched palm. There was no clang of metal, no shower of sparks. The light of the sword simply died. Ethel, the legendary blade that could not harm a pure heart, grew dull, its golden filigree turning the color of lead. It did not shatter, it simply became inert, its magic consumed by the perfect void of Malachor's being. Malachor did not strike back. He simply held the dead blade. You're wrong. Death is still part of the chaotic cycle. I offer something far more serene. An end to cycles. An end to endings themselves. Kalen stumbled back, his horror complete. He looked at his own hands. The vibrant skin was paling, the calluses from his sword hand smoothing away as if they had never been. His golden hair was losing its luster, turning a dull, ashen gray. He felt his memories, of his mother's smile, of the taste of summer wine, of the roar of a cheering crowd, thinning, becoming like watercolor paintings left in the rain. Tragedy is an excuse for the weak to seek power. Malachor's voice echoed in the silent chamber, now Kalen's tomb. I required no such excuse. I simply looked at the world and I preferred it empty. Sir Kalen did not scream. He did not cry out. He simply stood there as the color drained from him, as his substance unraveled, until he was little more than a whisper of dust on the obsidian floor, soon to be swept away by a non-existent wind. And outside the silence spread. Not the silence of death, which is an absence of sound, but the profound silence of non-being, which is an absence of everything. The bards would never sing of Sir Kalen's fall, for in time, there would be no bards left to sing, and no one left to remember he had ever risen. For the most terrifying evil is not the one that screams its pain to the world, but the one that calmly and rationally decides the world would be better off not existing at all. End of the tale of the pure. Sometimes there is no method to evil.